At the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8th line down. Mishemar Boskenim. See that? Mishemar Boskenim. Name of 4 elders. They said. Anechle Ruva Rishon. Let's say it's Shabbos after Yontif, Yontif after Shabbos, and let's say your eruv is consumed on there's an eruv tchumen. So your eruv is you made an eruv tchumen for the first day, right? And then the next day it got eaten up. So Anechal, in the course of the first day got eaten up, and then was not around for the second day. So what? You ate it yourself, could be eaten. Yeah, and animals ate it also, would be the same idea. So, on the second day, then he's like the other people of his city. In other words, he doesn't have an additional 2,000 amos because he had no Erev Tchum for the second day. Rav Chuna b'shem Rav Amar, Rav Chuna b'shem Rav Aloch Kar Boskei Aloch is like these 4 elders. Now, Rav Chisda asks, the Rav seems to be a contradiction in Rav. Because Taman over there in this case of Erev Tchumen, Wavad Shtei Kedula Shtei Kedushos, he's making Yontiv and Shabbos as if they're 2 separate Kedushos, meaning that you can have an Erev Tchumen split, one for the Yontif and one for the Shabbos, or vice versa, one for the Shabbos and one for the Yontif, right? But here, Wavad Kedusha Achas, but here he makes it like one Kedusha, where by us, the Spaugun, we have our Machlokas here. We mentioned the last week at the end of the day, Shorei B'sila, if you have leftover wicks, which you lit Shabbos candles from, and there's a Yontif on Sunday, so then those Shorei B'sila from Shabbos till Sunday, Shorei Medura are leftover logs from a Medura, if it's the other way around, from Yontif to Shabbos, Shorei Shemen Shekavah b'Shabbos. No, also from Shabbos to Yontif. You made a bonfire Erev Shabbos. It was left over for Yontif. Shorei Shemen Shekavah b'Shabbos. So you have leftover oil from a candle which burnt on Shabbos. Ma'alik and B'Yov, you're allowed to light them on the Yontif, which is immediately adjacent there too, on Sunday. So in that case, Rav, Rabbi Chanina, Tarvayo, Omer, they both said Osir. So we see the Rav holds that the 2 days when they attach to each other, Sunday is the Yontif, following a Shabbos, they're all one Kedusha. So therefore the wicks and logs, which became Osir on Erev Shabbos because they were burning in a bonfire or in a candle, remain also throughout Shabbos and Yontif. So how then can you say that vis-a-vis Erev Tchumen you can divide a day in 2? It makes no sense. How can you reconcile that? On the one hand, you say that you can make the Erev Tchumen 2 separate days. But here you say in terms of muktzah, it's muktzah for both days. So the truth is, the Gemara is not going to give an answer to this. But in the meantime, the Gemara slips into a further discussion of the wick case. Vam Rabbi Mona Kuma Rabbi Yudan Ma Avchon Lapsila Gabi Beitza. This really is something which not relevant to our discussion right now, but we discussed this last week. What's the similarity between Psila and Beitza? In other words, the people last week they wanted to make comparison. Just like the Psila is also for both days, so the egg is also both days. How do you know there's a comparison between the two? Since you saw the Rabbana comparing one to the other, Adamras teaches us he Adah, they're both similar cases. Again, that's not relevant to us. The bottom line is that there is no reconciliation here. There's no clear cut answer. There's no answer at all for Rav. The Rav on the one hand holds by Tchumen, we divide up the days one from the other, but by Psili holds whatever is also at the beginning of the days, also for the rest of the days. Of course, one could give all sorts of svaras. One could say that perhaps the muktzah of Psila is different than Tchum, because Tchum you have to be kona something, so you have to be kona each day, but muktzah is not, just bars you from using it. I know, you can give all sorts of chilukim, but the Yerushalmi itself doesn't bother to give me an answer. Now, it says Yerushalmi, Hakol modim benashrin shein osir. Nashrin is stuff which falls off a tree on Shabbos. Everybody agrees that is osir, regardless. Now, that's the case. Rabbi Bum Bar Chiyah Kabal Kum Rabbi Zer Ma ben Nashrin Ma ben Beitzim. It seems that even Beis Shammai, who allows you to use an egg which is laid on Yom Tov, does not allow you to use, let's say, fruit which fell off a tree on Yom Tov. What's the difference between the two? So Rabbi Boom Berachia, I just read that. So it says, what I tell you, Ilu Nashim b'Moseim Shema Einan Yisurin. Well, let's look at it. Where do the fruit which fell off the tree come from? A tree. A tree is also, you now have to climb up a tree, now they'll break branches from a tree, so the tree is also, therefore it falls off the tree is also. Because you might go up and snap off a branch. Ilu Beitzim, but the eggs, being the same when they're in their mothers, Shema and Mutar, so they're not mutar. In other words, the eggs come from hens. Based on Shema, as far as that eggs come from hens. Hens themselves are mutar to slaughter and eat, right? So therefore the eggs are mutar. Suppose the stuff which falls off a tree, the stuff on the tree is also, right? So therefore when it falls off the tree, it remains also. Ask her, okay, if that's the case, fine. Let's ask Kasha according to Beis Hillel, okay? Me'ata, no to be yontev lo te'ochel b'Shabbos, b'Shabbos lo te'ochel b'yontev. Look, even Beis Hillel agrees. Beis Hillel in our Mishnah says that an egg which is laid on Yom Tov is osur, but the next day on Shabbos will be mutar, or vice versa. So the Gemara asks the Kasha, why should be mutar? If Beis Hillel, this is a little bit of a complex question. Beis Hillel obviously doesn't look at the fact that the hen is mutar and therefore the egg should be mutar, because Beis Hillel looks at the chicken and the egg as being two distinct entities. Well, if he doesn't look at the chicken and the egg as being one entity and therefore being mutar, so that must mean that he has some gezerah which he holds forbids the use of the egg, despite the fact that it comes from a mutar hen. Well, if that's the case, and we've said already, according to several opinions, when a Shabbos follows Yom Tov follows Shabbos. It's all one long kedusha, and that's why, for example, the wick, which is also on Erev Shabbos, remains also till after Yom Tov 2 days later. So let the egg, which is laid on Shabbos, be also on Yom Tov, or if it's laid on Yom Tov, let it be also on Shabbos. Amar Leisei said, no, I don't like that one bit. Amar Leisei said to him, Bikini, should be like that. Lo dayacha shechmarto lea shasarto. Shim nolda biyot lo techel biyontiv is not bad enough that you forbade that if it's laid on yontiv you can't eat on yontiv. B'Shabbos yotochel b'Shabbos. If it's laid on Shabbos you can't eat it on Shabbos. Elashah mevakish lahachmir le shim nolda. Shimnola b'yontiv l'techel b'Shabbos, b'Shabbos l'techel b'yontiv. You want to be so machmir that not only do you want to go beyond what you want. Now you want asr on that same day, like Basil said. You want to go beyond it and asr on the next day. That doesn't make any sense. Now the truth is that the Gemara doesn't explain why this should be the case, but the Korban Adam Pnei Moshe explained that you misunderstand Beis Hillel. What he's really saying is misunderstand Beis Hillel. You think that once it's laid on one of those 2 days, those 2 days are also because they're all one unit, and for those 2 days, Shabbos after Yom Tov after Shabbos, something has to be prepared from before Shabbos or Yom Tov began, whichever came first. That's not the reason Beis Hillel. Beis Hillel's reason, a different reason. They hold anything which is born or laid or created on a day is also for that day. The next day will be mutar. So they were never so machmir on a beitza. By psila, by the wick, let's say. Where it's not a question of noilat, right? It's a question of true muktzah. So there it becomes also on Erev Shabbos, remains also throughout Shabbos and Yom Tov. But by noilat, which is something which really was prepared from before Shabbos and Yom Tov, because it was fully formed in its mother's innards. But nevertheless, since it's born or laid on Shabbos and Yom Tov, it's prohibited. That doesn't carry over to the next day. Now, in this vein, Rabbi Yirmiyah has a question like this: Iturei sukkah, the decorations of a sukkah. Mahen. What's their status on Shmini Atzeres? So Rabbi himself came and he answered. He said, Kol Shivim B'Telem Agabi Sukkah. For all 7 days, Noi Sukkah, the decoration of Sukkah are forbidden, right? Because they're muktzah for the mitzvah of Sukkah. You can't get any other benefit for them. But on the end, from there on in, from after the 7th day is over, from Hoshana Rabbah, from the time Hoshana Rabbah is over, meaning on the 8th day, they are prepared for usage. You can use them. Rabbi Yisrael said, Kol Shiva Kedusha Sukkah Chalem. All 7 days they're holy because they're put, or they're muktzah, because they're connected to the Sukkah. Mikan ve'elach, on the 8th day, Kedushas Yontif Chalem. Now they became Kodesh because of Shmini Atzeres. Now why is that? In Eretz Yisrael they don't see the Sukkah Shmini Atzeres. What it means is, like the Meforshim explained here, since Bein HaShmoshos, in the twilight time between the 7th and 8th day, if you wanted to sit in the sukkah, if you wanted to eat, you would have to sit in the sukkah. So the sukkah is still suitable for the mitzvah, misafek, right? So therefore, since the noise sukkah became also for that bein hashmashos period, it remains also for the wall of yontif, right? Wall of yontif meaning the 8th day. So therefore, it's clearly also on the 8th day as well. And that's really what we're saying by the psila, by the wick, getting back to the wicks which you start, and the logs which you started to put into your fire on Erev Shabbos, and now they're also going to be also on Sunday as well, is because since in the twilight time, between Shabbos and Sunday, Yontif, they were also misafek, so therefore Migadis Katsoy Ben Hashmashos became also for that twilight, between Shabbos and Sunday, they remain also for all of Sunday. That's not the case by the Beitza, because the Beitza is a whole different type of case. It's not muktzah for the entire 24 hours of Shabbos. You know, if I put it in a lumdish way, I would say that which is muktzah is set aside for all 24 hours of Shabbos. And therefore, for the next Bein HaShmoshos between Shabbos and Sunday, if Sunday is the Yontif, it's also, so it's also for Sunday as well. Muktzah is not also for all 24 hours, it's also because an event occurred on this day. Meaning it became nolad on this day. The next day it's going to be mutter. So therefore, Bein HaShmoshos, it's not osir, because it's no longer. It's not a question of muktzah. It's a question of a new type of issa called nolad on the day it's laid or born. So therefore, basically, we'll say the next day it's mutter for sure. Now, says the Gemara, Ma asamisha. What could he ask? You could have asked Kasha like this: Yontif shechali Erev Shabbos. What if Shmini Atzeres comes on an Erev Shabbos? So it's also Shmini Atzeres because of the Bein HaShmoshos between the 7th and 8th day. What about now from Shmini Atzeres to the following Shabbos which comes after it? Or Chutzor to Simchas Torah, the same idea. Command them Shtei Kedusha, same, like the being which holds the two separate Kedushas, of course it's mutter. Because Shmini Atzeres is only also because it was the suffix of the 7th day. Right, during Bein HaShmoshos being discerned between the 7th and 8th day. Rabbi Shishmi says about Torah or Shmi says in the Shabbat which follows it, there's no room to have such a suffix. However, according to being it's one more kedusha that one in fact can make the case that once it became also Shmini Atzeres evening, it continues to remain also for throughout that day Shmini Atzeres, of course, and beyond that into the Shabbat which follows it. Or Chutzor Simchas Torah, the Gemara does not resolve the question. And the the Bavli says it's mutter. Bavli says the Shmini, the 8th day, which is it's also, but not the 9th day, meaning Simchas Torah. Or I shouldn't say that. And all in Eretz Yisrael. Now in the Chutzor it's also because on the 8th day we do sit in the Sukkah, right? So it's on in Eretz Yisrael the 9th day. It's not also Banoah because of the 8th day. Okay, right. Eretz Yisrael is right Simchas Torah, so therefore that day Simchas Torah is also because the Bein HaShmoshos between Hoshana Rabbah and Simchas Torah answers it. But if Shabbos comes out afterwards, right, then first they wouldn't answer because we pass they're two separate kedushos. Right, you're right. It's obviously not Simchas Torah and Eretz Yisrael 9th day, right? It's a good point. Okay. Yerushalmi Omrim, Sora Kazayis, Yerushalmi says, or that the sourdough, the prohibition on Pesach is kazayas. Sourdough you can't eat. Sourdough is just something which is a starter for fermenting doughs. So like it's bacteria, right? It's a catalyst or the enzyme, whatever it's called. The chametz kosevis, the shiur of chametz, which is a kosevis, it's a larger shiur, the size of a date. They hold that both shiurim are kazayis here to Beisil's machmir. Rabbi Zikam Hashem Rabbi Yisrael said, "Lo shor biuro." So they only tell you about what the shiur is that you have to eradicate from your house. But in terms of eating, the shiur is a kazayis, right? In other words, you transgress already if you eat a kazayis of either one of them. Rabbi Yochanan said, "Bein biuro, bein la'achila kazayis." Yeah, both for beer and achil, the shiur is kazayis. Now, why you have to tell me that the shiur is the same for the beer and for the achila? He's going Beis Hillel. He's saying that don't think that Beis Hillel goes down a notch since Beis Hillel says it was more machmir than Beis Shammai by in terms of beer, and says that chametz is a kazayis. You have to eradicate chametz kazayis, whereas Beis Shammai said it's chametz size koseves. So I might say, since Beis Hillel holds Beis Hillel might agree that sore is always more chomer than chametz, and say that by sore you're chayiv even if it's less than a kazayis, like even if you ate less than kazayis. So as Beis Hillel would say, the biur of sore maybe is a kazayis. Maybe chayiv if you eat even less kazayis, because we see that sore is more stringent. So therefore the Gemara had to tell us that there's no lesser shiur for which you're chayiv less than kazayis, neither for biur nor for achila. Come Rabbi Mana Rabbi Chizkiah. So Rabbi Mana got up with Rabbi Chizkiah. Amar Lei, and he said, in other words, he started a conversation with him. Amar Lei, so he said, Min hein shama Rav Hodam Milser. From where did you hear the statement? Amar Lei, so he said, Min Rabbi Avo. I had to say for Rabbi Avo. Amar Lei, so he said, none are min Rabbi Avo, but Rabbi Yochanan. We in fact also said, heard, or said in name Rabbi Avo, name Rabbi Yochanan, ben libiur ben la'achila kazayis. That's or both for beer and for achila shiur is kazayis. The low cane, because if it wasn't kazayis, so it's for soy we chayiv for even less than a kazayis. Nisnei shloshim b'sheva krisa b'Torah, then there'd be a 37th krisa in Torah. The Gemara Masechta Krisa says there are 36 krisos in the Torah. You get course for 36 things. One of them is something eats chametz on Pesach. So if you're going to say Sa'or has a different shiur, then you should have a 37th thing, which is eating Sa'or on Pesach, which is separate shiur than chametz. So it must be they're both the same shiur, and that's why, since they're both the same shiur, then it's not enumerated as a separate 37th krisus there in Masechta Krisus. Hashogri chayav op yontif. Somebody who slaughters a chaya or an oaf on yontif, both of which require kisui adam. Basically, have to cover the blood after you shecht it. Beis Shammai reim yach or bedeker. Beis Shammai says you have to dig with a pick the yichas and get dirt and cover the blood of the animal or the bird. It's only lo yishkot. You should not shecht only can a yolo offer milchon unless you had dirt which is prepared for this purpose before yontif. Modim, but if they concede, even Beis Hillel concedes, she'im shachat. Did Yeviv did shecht sheyachbor bedeker? You should dig down with a pick yichase, and you should cover the blood. Now the Gemara is going to make clear that that's only if you already had that pick stuck in the ground and the ground was soft. Because if you actually have to start digging and softening the ground on Shabbos, that's also because of choresh. This is only if it's already dug down, it's already sitting in the ground, and the ground's very soft underneath it. Now, the Mishnah gives another alternative, she'efer akira muchan, which really is a separate statement, means to say that if a person has ashes from a stove, then a person could use that because that's considered to be muchan, and that could be used for the purpose of kisui dam as well. Rabbi Chia b'shem Rabbi Yochanan said, I'm a vassal and available yontif and a look. If somebody cooks an available, somebody cooks a non-kosher food on yontif, he doesn't get malchus. Shuta mikal bishul yontif. Since the bishul is mutar yontif tzarich ochel nefesh, so therefore any type of cooking doesn't, although it's usher, does not get you malchus. You don't get flogged for it. Rabbi Shimon lokasham loike. Rabbi Shimon says no, you do get flogged. That which is mutar to cook is only that which you can consume, and of course no Jew can consume forbidden foods. Rabbi Yochanan asked Rabbi Yochanan, say you don't get malchus. Let's say that somebody who plows on yontif doesn't get malchus, even though he's out in his field and plowing. Because we see in our mission that you're allowed to plow in order to get dirt for kisui adam. Because he told, when it says b'diavad, you can get dirt, that means mamish you can dig dirt, right? So we see that plowing is mutzah for the Torah mitzvah. So let's say you don't get malchus if you did it as an avera. Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Hila said no. That which they're mat, it's true they're matir taking dirt if you forgot, but only if it was soft dirt and the pick was already in the ground. True plowing they never allowed on Shabbos or on Yontif. Rabbi Shimon Yomer Kum Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Achab B'Shem Rabbi Hila said to Rabbi Shimon, another alternative could be our Mishnah is Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon Amar Achi Yatzar B'Gufa Shel Davar. Shimon says Malacha Shein Tzich L'Gufa is potter. You do Malacha not for the purpose of done in Mishkan, you're exempt. So in the Mishkan, they didn't dig holes to get out. They dug holes in order to plow. They didn't dig holes in order to get the dirt out of the hole, right? So you have to get that dirt out of the hole for kisei adam. That's considered to be a malacha shein tzich l'gufa, not the purpose of the Mishkan. That's why our Mishnah allows you to do that, because you're not doing it for the purpose of softening the ground and preparing it for planting, which would be charisha, some other purpose. So even though the act is the same act, it's a malacha shein tzich l'gufa, it's not being done for the purpose of the Mishkan, so therefore it's permissible. Come Rabbi, but any other type of charisha, of course, you get flogging, because then you're actually doing it for the land itself. Come Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yachon. So Rabbi Yossi came and started a conversation with Rabbi Yachon. Amalei, so he said, Atah Marta Adam Milsa. The Jews say this. Locate Amar Rabbi Yochanan, and Rabbi Yochanan say, Divrei Meir, Kon Rabbi Meir, 24 Dvorim Michulei Beisham, Michulei Beisov, Ezech Mem. Rabbi Meir said there are 24 things in which Beishama is making, Beisil is Machrir, and this is one of them, this thing of Kisei Adam. Well, if that's the case, our Mishnah got to be Rabbi Meir, not Rabbi Shimon. How can somebody say Rabbi Shimon? No, Ma'asim V'Shloisha. We should say it's 23 according to you, because it's not Rabbi. It's our Mishnah Rabbi Meir. Ella, maybe you want to say Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Shimon, Shneim Davar Amru Davar Echad. Maybe you'll say, well, that Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Shimon both say the same thing, and therefore our Mishnah is going both like Rabbi Shimon says Malch Shein Tzich L'Gufa is mutar, and like Rabbi Meir who holds like Rabbi Shimon. Says, well, that's no good, because look inside Meimar, didn't we say elsewhere, not in our sugya, didn't we say Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Shimon, Shnei Marmud Davar Echad? It says Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Shimon are both of the same opinion, that Melacha Shein Tzich L'Gufa, not done for the purpose of Mikdash Mutar. And if Rabbi Meir was a member of that club, which held that Melacha Shein Tzich L'Gufa is Mutar, Neymar should say Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Shimon, Shloshta Marmud Davar Echad. Why is that mentioned there in Masechta Shabbos? So it must be that our Mishnah is not necessarily like Rabbi Shimon, because Rabbi Meir agrees to it, and Rabbi Meir doesn't necessarily agree to Rabbi Shimon. Ella, rather, Milan the Tzrichin Rabbanan, that which the rabbi said unclear, Pshita L'chon is obvious to you, Pshita Rabbanan, that which the rabbi said clear, Tzrichin L'chon. By you it's not clear. What do we mean? Katzar Torah Chasavim. If somebody harvested for the purpose of the grass, in other words, he wanted to take grass or weeds, really, more properly, out of the ground in order to use them as fuel. So chai mishum kotzer, you're chai because you harvested. Ve'eno chai mishum shumiyat. I'm sorry, you weren't weeding. Apologize, that's coming up later. You're only taking the grass as fuel. So Kotzer Tzorach HaSoim, you're Chai Mishum Kotzer, you're Chai because of harvesting. Ve'enu Chai Mishum B'Shum Yapis on Karka, you're not Chai because you weeded the ground. We don't look at your weeding, because your intent was to harvest for the purpose of gathering the grass. Your intent was not to weed. So you're Chai because of harvesting, you're not Chai because of weeding. Lo Tzur Chada, that's not that's not a question by us. We didn't have to even ask that. Ella, it says lo, but it should be Ella. Kotel Iapusis Akarka. What happens if you harvested with the intent of weeding your land? Maushi Chai Mishum Kotzer Mishum Yapis Akarka. Chai because A, you were Kotzer, and B, you were Yapis Akarka, you made your land better as well. Now, the Gemara said these rabbis who asked this question clearly can't ask this question according to Rabbi Shimon, because according to Rabbi Shimon, obviously, you can't be chayav on being miyapis karka, on beautifying the land, because that's a malacha shein tzich legufa. In the Mishkan, they never harvested in order to beautify the land, in order to weed. They harvested because they need to harvest stuff, right? They didn't do that. So therefore, it's not. Obviously, the Rabbanan don't hold of Rabbi Shimon, right? They're asking this question, right? And says I feel the same Rabbi Shimon here. Even you're going to say that according to Rabbi Shimon, it's not a question. Although the language I feel the same Rabbi Shimon, he literally means, even going to say it's going like Rabbi Shimon, what it really means here, even going to say it's according to Rabbi Shimon, it's not a question. The question according to Rabbanan, according to Rabbi Yehuda, that listen, you did Charisha, you did Katsira, maybe you're Chai because of both. Now, I want to point out, I heard, or have seen, I don't remember where, but I haven't seen it in a long time, that the Yerushalmi doesn't hold the concept of Sikresha by Shabbos. And this seems to be a proof for that. Because if the Yerushalmi held the concept of Sikresha, it's obviously you're Chayev because of weeding. Because it's Sikresha, right? You're definitely weeding. But the question is, you didn't intend, you weren't weeding as a weeder, right? You were harvesting. You had a secondary intent to weed your land. So that the Yerushalmi asks whether that's considered to be sufficient to be mechayev you, according to Rabbi Yehuda. Is that considered to be sufficient intent? The fact that you had a secondary intent to do your land, or is that to be that only on your primary intent we're mechayev you? But of course, if you hope Sikreisha is also, then even according to Rabbi Yehuda, there's no question. Specifically according to Rabbi Yehuda, there's no question. Like Rabbi Shimon, you're part because Malacha Shein Tzich L'Guf. It's not for the purpose on the Mishkan. But like Rabbi Yehuda, if your Psik Reisha is Chayev, so here it's true you did it for harvest, but you're also doing it. It's also beneficial to you to be miyapa the karka. So I can't say it's only a secondary kavana; it's an equal kavana. Only if we don't hold the concept Psik Reisha, then we could say, well, your primary kavana was to harvest. Your secondary kavana is to beautify or weed. Do I look at your secondary kavana besides your first primary kavana? Like Rabbi Yehuda, it would be both. I think that that's the way to learn our sugya. So in any event, Amrei Ramona said, Milein the Rabbanan, the words of the rabbis, Misayel Rabbi Yossi. Although it sounds here like we're really the rabbis, they were not inclined to say like Rabbi Shimon. Because here they said quite clearly that we have a question which only applies to Rabbi Yehuda, that you should be chayiv two, one for harvesting and the other for beautifying your land. According to Shimon, you can't be chayiv for beautifying your land. So it's moksha and suluguf on the Mishkan. They didn't beautify the land. They couldn't care less about what grew in the midbar or not. So therefore, the Chorah, it sounds like we only hold like Rabbi Yehuda and not like Rabbi Shimon. And therefore, the question we're back to is how come our Mishnah could allow the guy to dig in order to get for Kitzei Adam, unless you said he was doing the Shinu. But now the Yerushalmi comes along and says, you know what? Amrei Monami Land Rabbanim Misayin Rabbi Yossi. There's a riot from the rabbis, and these rabbis, I should stress, are Rabbi Yochanan and his friends, the Amoraim. There's a riot from the rabbis for Rabbi Yossi, that we paskin like Rabbi Shimon, that Mloch Shein Zichel Gufas Potter. Dam Rabbi Chia b'Shem Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Chia's name Rabbi Yochanan. Dag should be Rabbi Chia Bar Abba probably, Barba. A fish which you squeeze. Im legufo, if you squeeze it in order to remove its liquid, potter, they're exempt. Im lahotzi tzir, if you're going to say that you're doing it, however, to get out the brine, then harei chayev. Now, why? Because you're taking out the brine from the fish, that's dosh. Because the brine was absorbed in the fish and is solid, and now you made it liquid again. So if you're doing it for the fish, in other words, to squeeze out from the fish the bad liquid, so then that's okay. But you're not trying to create a liquid, you're trying to get rid of a liquid. But you're trying to create a liquid from a solid, that's Isser of Tosh. Now we see clearly it's got to be going like Rabbi Shimon, because Vafilu Tem Rabbi Shimoni, you must say this good Rabbi Shimon. Again, the language of Vafilu Tema is funny and doesn't fit in very well. What it means is got to be Rabbi Shimon. We're around Rabbanan, because like Rabbanan, become already Sachan, become already Hotzitzir. According to Rabbi Yehuda, since he is Mechayvim Amlocha Shein Tzich Lagufa, the bottom line is here you squeezed out brine from fish. So what does it matter what your intent was? Whether your intent was for the fish, your intent was for the for the brine. The bottom line is you squeezed. You squeezed. It should be Mloch D'Oraisa. Rabbi Abu Moshe Rabbanan Tamanzo Sameres. Now getting back to our Mishnah. So till now he proved our Mishnah should be going like Rabbi Shimon, because Rabbi Yochanan also holds Rabbi Shimon that Melacha Shein Tzich L'Gufa is part, and if it's possible, that's why you're allowed to get the dirt for Kisei Adam even on Yontif. However, says more, getting back to our Mishnah, Rabbi Avun Rishen Rabbanan Tamon says Zosa Meres She'ein Efer Kir Muchan Ela Mitzvah. Our Mishnah says that you can use the ashes from a stove to cover to make Kisui Adam. Now, why is it specifically mentioned Kisui Adam? Why does it not mention anything else? So it must be that Efer Kira, the dirt in the oven, the ash in the oven, are only designated for the purpose of mitzvah, not for anything else. Amrei Ramana said B'shlo Echino. That's all if you didn't designate it explicitly. But if you designated the Efer Kira for anything, Mechasim Bo, you're allowed to cover with it. Here the Korban Eda and the manuscripts say Tzoa u'mitzvah. Tzoa, they throw in the word Tzoa. You can even cover your excrement with it. You don't have to look for a mitzvah what to do with it. Ba'asakidam Rabbi Simi, and that goes like Rabbi Simi said, Dorish Rabach B'Shem Rabbi Yehuda, that Rabach said name Rabbi Yehuda, Echinu l'mitzvah, you prepared your ashes for a mitzvah, Chasim Bo mitzvah, you can use it for the purpose of mitzvah. So if you prepared it even for the purpose of covering excrement, Mechasim Bo Potsoa, then you can use it for the purpose of covering excrement as well. Rabbi Yosef Rabun Omar, Rabun said, Ispalgun, it's a machlokus. Now what the machlokus is, the Mechamayim, the Aruch HaShulchan on the Yerushalmi says, the machlokus is when you prepared your ashes, stop. You didn't specify what you're doing it for. You said, I'm preparing my ashes. What does that include? Rabbi Zayin and Rabbi Abba Yosef argued. One said it's as if you prepared explicitly for excrement. You use it to cover excrement. The other said, so he's not prepared to be used to cover excrement unless you explicitly designate for that purpose, because that purpose is so rare and disgusting, because usually you just go to an outhouse, that we can't say it was prepared for that purpose unless you explicitly designate for that purpose. So a person who said that unless you explicitly designated, the ashes cannot be used to cover excrement, he asked the man who says they can. He asked, "V'yachasabos a koi." This is a very interesting question. You know, a koi, we don't know exactly what a koi is. It's a buffalo or something like that, and it's a suffik chaya, suffik behema. Okay, you don't know if it's a chaya or if it's a behema. Chaya is chaya b'kisui adam, a deer, chayiv in kisei dam. Behemos, cows are not. So you shech the koi. We don't know if it's chayiv in kisei dam or not. So we have halacha not to shech the koi on Shabbos. So the question which this Mandomer is asking, why not? Because you don't have Afer. So designate Afer stam, without attribution. Don't say it's for a koi. Say the Afer is for any purpose, and it just like it works for excrement, it should be able to work to cover the koi's blood misafik, right? So v'chasabos a koi. So it says more Amar Leis. He said koi derech miyodam litos bo. The reason why I don't let you do kisei adam on a koi on Yontif is not because we can't find the dirt, the ashes for it. You can designate the ashes for it before Yontif. It's because we're afraid if we allow people to do kisei adam on the koi, they're going to say, must be that the koi is a chaya. And there's a certain kula by chaya, which is not by behemah, that you can eat the chelav of a chaya, which you can't eat by behemah. So if we're allowed to, we're afraid it's going to start eating the chelav of a chaya. Okay? Now, so however, ain't there if you let a person cover excrement with stam dirt, so what mistake are people going to make as a result? Certainly no severe mistake. Amalei, so he said, if that's the case, if you're afraid for mistakes, so if that's the case, why did Beis Hillel allow you? B'diavad, they said, don't check unless you have dirt. But b'diavad, if you have dirt, so you could use a pick, which is in the ground, and pick up some dirt, nor do kisei adam. Why allow that? People might then come and say, well, if I can do that, I can even dig holes for get dirt for kisei adam. But and furthermore, a similar question, if you have dirt which is prepared to plaster your roof, seed or lime to plaster your house, you do kisei adam with it on Yontif. So Tani, there is a price which holds a mechasin. Rabbi Yosef Merchizah said, "Mandamar mechasin shiava." That he who said you are allowed to use it is b'diavad. Once you're ready to shech, you have no alternative. Mandamar mechasin, who said you shouldn't use it to do kisei adam. The boy is only if you come to ask what you should do or not. So then we tell you not to do it. But here too we see b'diavad, you're allowed to use whatever dirt you have prepared for kisei adam. If that's the case, so then, why do we allow you to do that? You might come to doing this at the raisa, like digging up dirt in order to get dirt for kisei adam. So the Gemara ends with a question here, which Gemara never resolves. The Gemara is saying that if you're afraid that by a koi, if we allow you to do the kisei adam misafek with prepared dirt, you might come to the chelev. So we should never allow you to do any kisei adam on Yontif, lest you come, in fact, to then use a pick and actually dig out something on Yontif itself. Tan Rabbi Yosef. Now getting back to the koi. Koi and mechasim damo. Rabbi Yosef gave an alternative why we don't cover the blood of a koi, not because of the chelev issue, but because of another issue. Because koi is a subject where it's a chayer behavior. And we say like this, very interesting kavachomer. Ma im mila, a bris mila, shevadoya doichash Shabbos. If it's definitely time to do the bris mila on Shabbos, it pushes off Shabbos. Ain't tzveka doicha yontif. However, it's a suffix whether it's the right time or not. It's not even doicha yontif, right? It doesn't even push off yontif. Kisu edam. Shame about the Shabbos, kisei adam, which never, even if it's your bad, I have to kisei adam, because definitely a behemah, definitely a chaya or an oaf, it still doesn't push off Shabbos, right? Dinu shelo yitches feikos yontiv, it certainly doesn't push off yontiv. So we see, he made a kavachomer teaches that suffix kisei adam inherent in koi doesn't push off yontiv. Says more. Wait a minute. You said kisei adam she'en v'adai doichas Shabbos, right? It certainly is not doichas Shabbos. How did you get the Kisei Adam on Shabbos anyway? Can't check on Shabbos. Where's the Kisei Adam? Rabbi Yossi Amar Lo Stam. Rabbi Yossi said without attribution. Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yochanan said B'shoichet L'choila. No, when you have to slaughter for a sick person on Shabbos, you don't do Kisei Adam even after you're allowed to do Shechita. So that's why we have a Kavachomer. If you don't do Kisei Adam, we're allowed to shecht on Shabbos. So if Mila, which you're allowed to do on Shabbos, you don't do Safek Mila on Shabbos. So Shechita, which Shechita, Kisei Adam, which we don't allow you to do on Shabbos, even if you did shech for some reason, so you certainly can't do a Safek of it on Yom Tov. So says the Gemara, Amrulo, they said, no, I don't like that Svara. Let me prove to you from a shofar outside Yerushalmi. If you have a vadai, it doesn't put a push of Shabbos. Meaning shofar is never doichel Shabbos. We never do shofar on Shabbos, right? Midrabanan. Yet vareis feiko doichel yontif, but it's suffix pushes off yontif. Suffix shofar. Now it says more ma suffix yesham. What suffix are you talking about? If it's the Sfeika Diyoima, right, because Rosh Hashanah, even Eretz Yisrael is 2 days, right, it's Sfeika Diyoima. So you're going to take a Sfeika Diyoima, that's not a good proof. Because there, you know why it pushes off Yontif? Because Masavi Yisham, Yom Chol Yitka, Yontif Yitka. It's either that one day is Yontif and one day is Chol, right? So the day of Yontif, the mitzvahs do Tkir Shofar. The day of a week, it's no Isser to do Tkir Shofar at all. So therefore, of course, the suffix is Doichi Yontif. Because the suffix, which is predicated on the assumption that the Yontif Rosh Hashanah has a mitzvah of Tkir Shofar, and if it's not Yontif, it's a weekday. But here, I'm talking about a suffix Ka, a suffix Beim, a suffix Chaya. The suffix is nothing to do with the Yontif. So how can I be matir? What kind of proof do you want to bring to that, right? So Rabbi Chia said, Bandreganus Shetaka. It's Taka, good right. It says an androgynous is a suffix. Suffix male, suffix female. He can blow on Rosh Hashanah. What? Hermaphrodite, right. So we can blow on Yontif. So if that's the case, we see a suffix, the Tanakh, we learned in our Brisa, androgynous motzi is mina, v'she'ez she'eno motzi she'eno mino. Androgynous can be motzi, other androgynous, other hermaphrodites, but he can be motzi, but he can't be motzi people who are either definite male or definite female. Tumtum, a person who has, we don't know what he is, because his simonim are covered with some flesh. So Eina motzi los minav los she'ena mina, since we don't know what he is, so therefore he can't be motzi anybody, neither other tumtums nor males nor females. Rabbi Yossi boy. So androgynous, we see a suffix pushes off yontif. So Yossi boy imba androgynous shetoka. If you ask me from an androgynous who blows, bedah detani ein lo tshuva. In that I have to agree with that which it says in the Bryce immediately, that I have no good response. Now the all the Meforshim here ask, and I don't have a good answer for it. Why doesn't he have a good response? It's a very simple response. The response is that androgynous is either male or female. Even a female is allowed to blow on Rosh Hashanah. But a koi is either behema or a chaya. And if it's a behema, there's no kisei adam at all on yontif. So there's no comparison. By androgynous, mimana shol, it's either male, female, and female, according to Rabbi Yossi, because allowed to blow shofar on Rosh Hashanah, at least per shus, she has the option. So that's why it could be androgynous pushes off, right, yontif to blow. But by a koi, how can you say it pushes off yontif? A koi, if it's a behema, it's altogether off the hook. So therefore, it's not allowed to have that you can't do kisei adam. That's not even a rishus. So therefore, of course, there's not going to be any, of course, no comparison. We're going to allow androgynous blow shofar. We don't allow kisei adam on a koi. So he said, but nevertheless, Gemara doesn't answer that. Ravid said, so on the fourth thing is which Rabbi Chia the Great, you say there's no response. Added on another blow to this logic. He said, what did he say? He said, my mila shein tzveika derechas yontif. Mila, where in a suffix not Doichas Yontif, Vadoya, and should be Ein Vadoya. Ein Vadoya Doichas Yontif, and it certainly can't be done, even if it's a Vade on the night of Yontif. Bris Milah always has to be done during the day. Kisei Adam. Kisei Adam should be Vadoya Doichas Yontif. Kisei Adam, if you're definitely high to do so, Doicha, it pushes off the night of Yontif, because you even do Shechita at night, right? Since it's definite, a definite requirement, if you slaughter a chayr overnight, requires you to push off to the night of Yontif. So let it safek push off Yontif itself, during the day of Yontif. Again, we're asking the question: why can't you slaughter a koi and do its kisei adam on Yontif as long as you have a four or an eifer ready? Look, we see if a vadai mila could be a mila is not doiche Yontif, because it's a vadai mila is not doiche the night of Yontif, so safek mila is not doiche the day of Yontif. But by koi, since it's vadai by kisei adam, since vadai kisei adam does push off the night of Yontif, so therefore a safek kisei adam should at least push off the day of Yontif. So you say again, you are right. Your reasoning that koi should not require kisei adam because of a kal v'chomer. If you don't do a milah on Shabbos, if you can do a milah on Shabbos, Rabbi Yossi's reason was if you can do a milah on Shabbos, but you can't do a safek milah on Yontif, so certainly the kisei adam which you don't do on Shabbos, you should not do kisei adam on a safek, a koi, on Yontif. Rabbi Lezer, Rabbi Lezer requires being doicha that. He's saying milah is different. Milah is not doicha Yontif because you have a milah at night. You never do a milah at night. So that's why it's not doicha Yontif. But maybe the kisei adam of an animal, which is doicha nighttime, when you have a definite need for it, you can do it at night. Maybe I say that kisei adam of koi should be doicha the day of Yontif as well. So l'maisa, we don't have a good reason why you don't do shchid the kisei adam of koi and shab on Yontif. The kamas, and the bottom line is it stood just like the older Rabbanan asked the Rabbi Yossi from Andreganus that we see a safek is doicha Yontif. The kasha be a dayon, it was difficult to them. Kain sarchas Rabban Achor, so too Rabbi Lezer, son of Rabbi Kfar, was much later. Moira asked a kasha on Rabbi Yossi, how come so the kisei adam of a koi doesn't push off Yontif? The kasha beyond is difficult for him as well. Now the truth is, however, we already have an answer on Rav why the kisei adam of koi is not doicha Yontif. The reason was because it was a gzeira. Because we're afraid if we allow you to do kisei adam, people are going to think it's a true chaya, and they're going to come to eat the chaylev of it on Yontif. You're always going to eat the chaylev of it. Rabbi Yossi wasn't operating from that line of reasoning. Rabbi Yossi was operating from the kasha, from parallel to milah. On the Moras, there's no comparison. A, because we see a case where safek is doicha Yontif by Andreganus. B, because milah is not doicha Yontif b'safek, even perhaps because it's not doicha the nighttime, but kisei adam, which is doicha the nighttime, perhaps it's doicha Yontif b'safek as well. So therefore, the reasons of Rabbi Yossi to extrapolate from milah is not a valid reason. Al daita Rabbi Yachon Andreganus motzias mino b'tchila. Now, according to Rabbi Yachon, an Andreganus can be motzi another Andreganus l'chatchila, because Rabbi Yachon holds the safek is doicha Yontif, right? So since the safek is doicha Yontif, so to an Andreganus. Al daita Rabbi Yossi l'shavar. Rabbi Yossi, though, however, Rabbi Yossi holds that kisei adam of a chai is not doicha Yontif, so therefore he has to hold also by Andreganus l'chatchila safek shall be doicha Yontif. So how which it says in Andreganus is motzias mino v'sheino mino, you have to say is motzias mino. Other Andreganus is only b'diavad, not l'chatchila, because he holds safek is not doicha l'chatchila. Okay. Umodim shimshola b'chud deker shachar. If you did shech sheyachbar deker v'yachas shefer kir muchan, you can use the ashes in a stove. That's true, only by ashes from a fire which was made before Yontif began. But Afer which comes from fire burnt on Yontif, low. You can't use it because that's not like Nolad, because it's new ashes. So you can't use them on that Yontif. By Medvarim also, that's only true b'shalo shachat. That's only true, however, the Chazal only were machmir not to use ashes fresh from Yontif when you didn't yet shech. They said, don't shech if you don't have ashes from before Yontif began. Only shachat, but if you did shech already, mutar shito mever shusak Yontif, it's still better to take ashes from a fire which was the made on Yontif. Now Yachbar Dekri Chassid had to use the pick, even the pick sticking into the ground, and use those ashes to cover your blood. Chavraya Amrin, the Chevra said, Mishem mitzvahs asay, doichel mitzvahs lo tasay. They said a very interesting thing. They said, you know what? The truth is you're allowed to actually go and dig a hole on Yontif and get out dirt to cover the blood, even though digging holes is the deraisa, like Rabbi Yehuda. I'm not staying either, so I hope you have a minute. Yeah, we don't have it. What time is Mincha tomorrow? Okay. The Chevra said the name of, so they said, so why is it Doicha? Shemitzvah sasei, Doicha mitzvah lo sasei. A mitzvah say is doicha mitzvah lo sasei. We have a say doicha lo sasei. The mitzvah say if kisadam pushes off lo sasei of Yontif. Yontif is only this or malchus. It's not like Shabbos, it's a skila, right? So therefore, I say is doicha lo sasei. Now, Daitit Rabbi Yonah do Amar mitzvah say doicha mitzvah lo sasei. Avo pish enak suv b'tzid or nicha. I never heard this principle before, at least I recall. But he also I say it's only doicha lo sasei where the two mitzvahs are next to each other. Actually, it says it's Yerushalmi Beitza, so I have to have seen it already. But it's only where the mitzvahs are written next to each other in the Torah. I mean, it's not only when it's written next to each other in the Torah. But Dait Rabbi Yossi Do'amar Ho ve'ein mitzvah say docha b'lo sasei elin kein hoisak ksuva b'tzida. A mitzvah says not docha lo sasei unless it's written next to it. How come this sasei is docha lo sasei? So it says more, I'll tell you why. This is what we say, if you start a mitzvah, finish it. So here we say to the guy, you started the mitzvah, since you started the mitzvah, you're allowed to finish it. And what does that mean? So the way I understand it means that you're allowed to shecht on Yontif, right? Because shechita is for the purpose of ochel nefesh. Kisoy dam is part of the mitzvah of shechita. So that's what you say, is that once you start the mitzvah of shechita, you're allowed to follow through on any aspect of the shechita, right? And he said that even though it's not directly related to the eating, to consumption, nevertheless, since you started with the mitzvah of shechita, you're allowed to finish by doing the kisui adam. Okay? Rabbi Zira asked, now the next word it says ka'ara, plate. But it's very difficult to really probably be according to this. Most Mefarshim say it should be karka, it should be ground, dirt. Karka shchaka koif. What if a monkey dug out the earth from the ground on Yontif? Can you use it for kisei dam? Or is digging the earth part of the mitzvah? And therefore, since the monkey dug it, it's not good. In other words, you have to have human generated dirt. Mao. One said it's osir, the Charon Amar, the other said it's mutter. Man Amar osir, he who said it's osir, said it's not muktzah sheyavish lo yadaba. Just like the muktzah, the dates and the grapes that you have drying, you didn't know about it. So to here, you didn't know about this dirt. Since you didn't know about this dirt, now let's use it. It's much, but not so much. Now I think about it, it's much, but not so much because you didn't dig it out, but because you weren't aware of it, it remains muktzah. But you have to miyached this dirt to use it on Shal Yontif, otherwise it remains muktzah. You didn't designate it, so it remains muktzah. I was there, but you didn't know about it. It's like the dry grapes, the raisins, and the figs, that they don't count since you didn't know about it. Madamar Mutter, he said it's mutter to use Nasa Ketevel Shatikno Shoge. It's like somebody who had stuff which has to be meiser, which not allowed to meiser on Shabbos, or Yontif, but he did it unintentionally, that b'diavad it's mutter. Madamar Mutter, somebody said the one who says mutter to use the dirt, Malish Tamish Gabi Mekom, can use the hole. So he says no. You're not allowed to use any holes on Shabbos because or Yontif, because you might come to smooth them out. To smooth them out is like choresh, so therefore you're not allowed to use the place where the hole was created, because that's a separate issue of not using ground or dirt, the ground on Shabbos, lest you come to smooth it out. Okay, we'll stop here.